right, Titan Nation, what's up? We got a special guest. Obviously, you see him to my left. We have Tennessee Titans senior writer, the great Jim Wyatt. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great. Hope you're doing well.
Whew, yep. It's a honor to have you on the show. You've been covering the Titans since '99. I mean, you've been with this franchise since the very beginning, and you have the weekend mailbag, which is really fun. Love all your posts. Love everything that you do. And you also joined the OTP with Mike Heath, Amy Wells, and Coach McGinnis. That's always fun to watch. And again, thank you.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's hard to believe it's been over 20 years now since I was first covering the team. I grew up in Nashville, never thought we'd have an NFL team here, and then to be a part of that first year as the Titans, and here we are now going into 2020 season. It's hard to believe how much time has passed, how many games I've seen, how many players and coaches I've been around, but it's been fun. I mean, it's been a great career for me.
That is awesome. And again, as Tennessee Titan fan, speaking of one, we love what you do. We love all the articles you write, and just keep doing what you're doing, man. Obviously you're a vet. I say you're a vet. They should have a poster of the great Jim Wyatt in Nissan Stadium sooner or later, because again, like you said, 20 years in, that's a lot, especially for a franchise.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I don't know if I'm worthy of that, but I've been lucky. I mean, I know a lot of people love to be in the job that I'm in, and that's why I try to work so hard to keep it, because it is, again, I feel very fortunate to be able to work in my hometown, place where I grew up, went to grade school, high school. Parents still live here, and then to be covering the NFL and to be covering the Tennessee Titans. I mean, it's kind of been, it hasn't seemed like work a lot of times for me. That's not to say that some really long hours and travel and some parts of the job not as fun and glamorous as people might think, especially when I was working at Tennessean, where you're working a completely different type of job, and you're trying to dig out information and chasing stuff that people don't want you to chase and having conflict with people. So you have to navigate through some of that, but it's a different job for me now, working for the team, being on the inside. And my job, I feel like, is to help deliver news, to fans of the team, and to kind of give them as close a look as possible about what's going on behind the scenes with some of the players, and kind of keep people up to date with what's happening on a day-to-day basis. So I enjoy it, and I'm glad to talk about it.
Thank you. And again, we stand by what you do, and we love everything that you do, man. And basically, a good starting point was, first of all, the visor. I saw the OTP, and I know you had a Cowboys one. He had a Titan shirt. I was like, I don't know, is he gonna wear a visor that says the Cowboy? Because again, I live in Texas. I'm like, we don't want to see that. I know that's was a team of yours,
Well, I have to tell you that's not a Cowboys visor. That's people have said that to me before. That's a I grew up hating the Cowboys. And,
okay, that's good then. That's good.
That's a Vanderbilt visor.
Okay. I saw a glimpse of it, and I saw the star. I'm like, oh my Lord. I mean,
you're not the first. I've had some people say, "Why are you wearing a Cowboys visor? You're wearing for the Titans," and I have to tell them that's not a Cowboys visor. That's a Vanderbilt visor. I grew up again in Nashville. My father went to Vanderbilt Law School. Had me go to games since I was 7 years old. So I'm a diehard Vanderbilt fan, and a lot of times we'll wear that visor, and that visor I've been wearing. I've worn it for probably worn it for 10, 15 years. I've got a bunch of them, but that one I wear is probably faded enough that it probably looks like a Cowboys visor. It's a Vandy visor. I can promise you, you'll never see me wear anything with the Dallas Cowboys logo on.
The only thing I have, because a lot of people also get on me too, is if you look to the right, you see the star. That's actually a Dallas Cowboys. That's actually the Monday night game that was here, played in Dallas, and we beat them. So I decided to take the terrible towel I put a cross, an X over the star, and then I put the score of the Titans because it was a really good game, and a lot of people were giving me some smack when I was at that game. It was very few Tennessee Titan players, fans out there, but it was a good time. We had the victory, and that's all that mattered. So that's the only thing Cowboy in this garage. Well, yeah, like I was saying, so you've been covering the Titans for so long. Did you, when you were growing up, what made you choose this career? And was there something else that you wanted to do, or you always kind of wanted to go into sports writing and stuff like that?
Yeah, it really was late in my. I always loved sports, and always check the box scores, and I remember I was a kid. I used to listen, to games on the radio, and I'd sometimes write, stories off of the games. At least I'd draw pictures, and so it was always my top interest. My parents, my mother especially, used to give me grief because I could remember, scores of games and batting averages and any kind of stats. But then I, didn't do so great in school. The report card would come in, and she said, if you pay as much attention as your schoolwork as you do the box scores and keeping up with sports, you'd be have a lot. But so as I knew it was something I always wanted to do. I didn't write for my school newspaper in high school, which a lot of people do, and they get a head start. And when I started off in college, I didn't major in journalism or in English. I thought I might go down the path that my father went down. He's in law. He was in the FBI. He was in the police department. Okay. And then he became a judge in Nashville in 1974. And he was a judge for over 40 years in town before retiring a couple of years ago. And I always thought maybe that was what I wanted to do. I have a brother that went into law, and have a sister that did as well. Started off when I was in college going down that path, and I just don't think it was for me. I switched my major to journalism and broadcasting, and I went kind of more toward the broadcasting angle, but that wasn't necessarily for me, and I couldn't get into the journalism school because you had to pass a series of tests, which was typing, and I think probably some English and some. There was one other aspect to it. I couldn't pass the typing test. I couldn't type as many words a minute as I needed to, so I ended up getting into English. I was an English major with an emphasis on creative writing, and I think that's maybe what kind of gave me a little bit of a jump start. And then I did write a story or two for my school newspaper. I went to the University of Tennessee, even though I'm a Vanderbilt fan. I love my days at the University of Tennessee, but I was a Vandy fan. So I've got to point. People can't understand why I would be a Vandy fan if I went to the background there. I had a great time at school there, but grew up with Vanderbilt my blood. But that's where I kind of got my taste for sports writing. But when I got out of school, I started working at a job that I had done in the summertime, which is at the Register of Deeds, which is a place in the Metro Courthouse in Nashville where they record property deeds and mortgages and tax liens. It's where people come in to do title searches before you buy a house to find out how much is owed on it or if it has a number of mortgages on it. And I did that job for 6-7 years full time as I first started to work at the Tennessean at the newspaper. And when I say I started at the basement of the Tennessee, I literally started at the basement of the newspaper. It's the bottom floor, back in an old building. I had rats running around on the floor underneath your feet because it was such an old building and dark place. Things got better as the building improved and moved up to a different floor, and things got better for my career as I went on too. I started off my job when I started off working at the Tennessean in newspaper business when I got out of college. Again, that was part-time. I was working a full-time job, 40 hours a week, and I started working part-time at the newspaper, and I worked 25, 30 hours a week. I'd work from 8 o'clock in the morning to 4:30 in the afternoon. I'd leave my job downtown, drive to 1100 Broadway where the Tennesseans located. I worked from 5 to probably 11 o'clock at night. And I did that 4 or 5 times a week. And a lot of weeks I worked more hours than that. But I used to take games on the phone. I took hole-in-ones. I took bowling scores. I took volleyball scores.
Oh, wow. You were everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, and I covered everything. And I finally got a chance to cover. My first assignment was to cover the Tennessean Regatta, which is a sailboat race.
Okay.
I covered stuff that nobody in the world wanted to cover. I can promise you. It's all part of paying your dues. And finally worked myself into a position where I was covering high school sports, small college sports, and then the Titans and Predators came to town in the late 90s. And that's kind of where I got my big opportunity. And again, it's hard to believe now, over 20 years later, I'm still covering the Titans. And I felt fortunate to get a chance in '99 when I started covering the Titans. And all these years later, I feel like I have been blessed. And the reason I've worked so hard and try to do my very best is because I want to keep doing this job.
That's awesome. I again, yeah, you always kind of have to start from the very bottom and work your way up. But like you said, that's awesome. I know the Tennessean, it's off Broadway, right? It's like on Broadway. I think
It used to be. It was on 1100 Broadway all the years I lived there. And Nashville has changed so much that all these buildings, existing buildings, the rent's gotten so high. Other people have come in and bought up lots and spaces around downtown and in the areas called the Gulch, which is where the Tennessean used to be. So, but I worked at 1100 Broadway, right across from Union Station. All the years I was there, and now if you walk by there now, that building's completely gone. It's been bought. The land's been leveled. The Tennesseans moved down the street, and they're in a different building now.
Yeah, I think the only time I actually seen, I think that building was in 2012. I think it was still up because that was like my first Titans game that I ever went to was in Nissan Stadium. Well, at that time it was something else, but yeah, it was the Tennessean, and I remember, and it's grown so much. Nashville itself has grown so much. There's so much buildings now. It's like they were saying, what would they call it? Something Vegas, Nash Vegas, or something.
Nash Vegas, that's right.
Yeah, so now it's crazy though, seeing that spark in all those people, and same thing with Titan fans as well. From 2012, when I went to see the Colts game, this was their first game against Andrew Luck. I went to go see them, and seeing all those Colt fans in that stadium compared to last year when I went to the Chargers game and seeing all those Titans fans, it's great to see. Like, it's just, we expanded as a fan base and gone together and rallied, and it's really good to see that, because I know when I took my best friend, I think it was like a Thursday night Jacksonville game, there was barely anyone there. And then we went, 2 years ago to another Thursday night game, and it was packed. And he was like, whoa, man, this is completely different from a couple of years ago. I go, yeah, the team's doing good and people are rallying behind them. And it was really nice to see, a stadium at least full with Titan fans.
Yeah, and people are starving for a team to have success, and because the team when the Titans first moved to town, from '99 to 2003, went to the playoffs 4 times in 5 years, went to 2 AFC Championship games, obviously went to the Super Bowl in '99. People embraced a team that was a winner, and there's been some lean moments over the years. The Titans went to the playoffs in 2007, bowed out early. 2008, started off 10-0, with number 1 seed in the AFC, losing the first round of playoffs, and then the team hasn't hosted a playoff game since. But I think what's happened of late, going to playoffs, 2017, winning a game at Kansas City, you get bounced out the next week in New England, but then a couple of years later, this past season, to go to New England and win against the Patriots, to go to Baltimore and win against the number 1 seeded Ravens, and then to find yourself in the AFC Championship game, I think it's really lit a fire under the fan base. And hopefully, this fall there'll be fans in the stands, we'll be at a point
Definitely.
where we can put people in the stands, and people will be able to kind of help this team build on its momentum from last season.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, that was such a good run last year, and just like you were saying, I think an eye opener for all the Tennessee Titan players was also when the Predators went to the Stanley Cup and they saw. I mean, I saw Broadway and I couldn't. It was so packed with all the Predator fans, and I think that lit a fire under the Titan players as well. And like, hey, if we get into the playoffs, this people will support us, and it was awesome. I remember seeing that, and they had that whole Smashville. I'm a New Jersey Devils fan. I mean, they're not good, but just to see the Predators, start up and get to the Stanley Cup was really cool, and see how Nashville and everyone kind of united together for those couple of games in the Stanley Cup was awesome. So I think
Yeah. Yep, no doubt. I mean, this city is a city is electric. Loves sports. Is going to support its teams, and the Preds have had some really good years. It's a fun atmosphere going to Preds games, and it's rowdy, and people drink some cold beer and get even rowdier. And it was fun. I was downtown on the streets of Nashville during some of those watch parties, and it's just fun to be in that atmosphere. I think you saw this past season when the Titans were making their run that this team, this city is behind the Titans very much so, and bars were packed. The city was on fire with excitement about what the Titans were doing, and now I think the challenge is to keep it going and to build on that success from last year.
I believe so. And talk about success from last year. I mean, we had John Robinson, Mike Rabel. John Robinson seems like every time the draft comes, I mean, he never fails. He's usually knows exactly what he's doing, what he needs, all the key pieces. Now, in your personal opinion, who do you think the best pick of the draft was this year, and why? Or who in the draft is going to make the most improvement in the Tennessee Titans this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. You look back at last year's draft class, and you saw you were A.J. Brown and Jeffrey Simmons and Nate Davis. I mean, your first three picks made an immediate impact. Simmons had to wait a while just because he was coming off of a knee injury. But guys like David Long, and you can keep going through that draft class, and a lot of guys helped you. I look at this year's draft class, and I'm curious myself to see who makes the biggest impact. Isaiah Wilson, I think, is going to be a really good player who was picked at number 1. But whether or not he can unseat Dennis Kelly at right tackle right out of the gate, I'm a little bit skeptical about that, just because there's not going to be an off-season program where he can work in OTAs and mini camps, and I just don't know if he has enough time in training camp to win that job. And that's also, acknowledging that Dennis Kelly is a good player himself who's played well. So I think in time, Isaiah Wilson is going to prove to be a really good pick. I think Christian Fulton, the second-round pick at LSU, has a chance to make an immediate impact just because I think he's going to play. And they're looking for guys to step up in the secondary after losing Logan Ryan. So he's going to be good. I think Darrington Evans, the running back out of Appalachian State, is going to be an upgrade over Dion Lewis.
Definitely.
So I feel like I'm curious to see just how much he is used. On a conference call with Arthur Smith yesterday, he made it pretty clear that they want to keep riding Derrick Henry, but they need to get him some rest. And he thinks that Evans is going to, be more explosive out of the backfield. And he didn't say this, but I think Evans is going to be more explosive out of the backfield than Dion Lewis. I think he's going to make a bigger impact than Dion Lewis. And you can tell by hearing Arthur Smith talk, he's excited about him. So I think those three guys certainly have a chance to all make an impact. The rest of those guys, Larrell Murchison, I think, will be in a rotation with some guys on the defensive line. I think he's got a chance to be a really good player. Cole McDonald, I think Logan Woodside, if I had to put money on it, I would think Logan Woodside would beat Cole McDonald out in the competition. for a spot. Whether or not that ends up being the 2 kind of remains to be seen. I think if Woodside plays pretty well and impresses the coaches, he's the 2. I think if Woodside and McDonald duke it out, Woodside edges them out, but is not as impressive as maybe they would have hoped, then I think still a chance that you add a veteran quarterback at some point. But I think McDonald is going to be more of a project in the making. And then Chris Jackson, the safety out of Marshall. I'm interested to see how he does, 7th round pick. Titans have hit on some 7th rounders before, guys who've come in and been underdogs and surprised, Cortland Finnegan being one of them. But, need to see how – I'd like to see him to have a really good idea of what he's about.
Yeah, and that's the thing with John Robinson. He likes those versatile players. He likes a person who could do more than one thing on the team as well. And Darrington Evans can do that. He could catch in the backfield, and like you said, he's definitely going to improve. I think he is an upgrade from Dion Lewis. Dion Lewis just couldn't find the hole. I just don't know what was his story, and just the way they used him most of the time was on 3rd down, where we kind of saw that it was going to be a screen pass or a pass play to usually Dion Lewis, and he just never went anywhere. So all positive, of course, for Darrington Evans. I agree with you. I think he's gonna help improve this team very much.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna take Derrick Henry off the field, then you better have a guy in there that can make it worth your while, because a lot of times it just felt like wasted snaps with Dion Lewis out there last year, and I think Evans has the potential to give you a little bit more bang for your buck. So I think he's going to be a weapon for this team. But again, Henry's going to make it hard for him to take him off the field, because he's just a valuable player who's really good, but you got to be conscious of him and not wearing him down.
Exactly, especially with the hamstring and stuff like that. We don't want that to happen again. So talking about this year, do you think the offense will struggle this year or pick up right where they started last year? Because for knowing Titans how they are, they usually start off very slow in the beginning of the year. It always happens. And then towards the middle, towards the end is when they start picking up and they go on that, like that run like they did last year. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think the reasons to believe that they can pick up where they left off, and I think the biggest reason is can sit here in early June and pretty much name the 11 starters. I mean, with the only question mark being right tackle, where again I think Dennis Kelly ends up winning that job. And I think it's a good thing when you look at your team and you don't necessarily wonder who's playing where. The team has its quarterback back. The team has its running back back. It has all 3 receivers, A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, and Adam Humphries back. And the offensive line returns intact. Again, with the exception of Jack Conklin moving on from Cleveland, Arthur Smith heading into a second year's offensive coordinator should have a better idea, more of a comfort level and an idea of what to expect. So I think the offense has a chance to pick up where it left off, but I think a lot of teams are going to be challenged by what's been a different offseason, because where you usually can get on the same page and work through some things in OTAs and mini camp and during the course of an off-season program, they're not going to have that this season. So you're going to have to really, be crisp and get up to speed quickly in training camp. And I think a lot depends on just how games go. I mean, I think Titans just can't afford to get behind the 8 ball and fall behind in games and have other teams dictate to them how they want the games to be played. I think the Titans need to use a formula that they used at the end of last season. That's run the ball, get ahead in games, control the clock, and then that way you can hit teams with the run and the pass. Lots depend on how the defense does and their ability to keep them in games and keep the opponents off the field. So I think a lot of factors are going to come into play, but I'm optimistic about the offense moving forward.
Now, are you more concerned about the defense than the offense? Because that was my my concern going into this season, just because we lost a lot of veteran leaders. You know, Woodyard's not here, Logan Ryan's not here, Jarrell Casey's not here. But we also lost Dean Pease. You know, I believe, I mean, he executed a well game plan against the Ravens. And I think stuff like that is what we're going to miss. And I think that's just the question mark I have going into this offseason. It's just the defense. What do you think? You think the defense should be all right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, I would say that I'd phrase it as that's where I've got the biggest question marks. I don't necessarily say concern because I think that some pieces are in place where the team can be good on defense again, but it has question marks. I mean, you mentioned them all. I mean, you're replacing Jarrell Casey, you're replacing Logan Ryan, you're replacing Wesley Woodyard, even though he had reduced snaps last year, just his presence, and he's had a great presence on this team for years. You're saying goodbye to some guys who've really been leaders for you, and Dean Pease is a big part of that. Who's did such a good job drawing up game plans and teaching throughout the week. Here he comes, team's secondary coach is moving on. He's now defensive coordinator at Ohio State. So a lot of new faces there, and some young guys are going to have to step up and play well. I think the addition of Jonathan Joseph, I think Kristen Fulton coming aboard, I think those are two guys have a chance to make an impact at cornerback. I think Jeffrey Simmons is going to step up on the defensive line and play well. I do like the team's, inside backers with Rashaan Evans and Jayon Brown. I think David Long is kind of surging. And I think Vic Beasley should make an impact, playing alongside a guy in Harold Landry who should take the next step after leading the league in sacks with 9 last year. Kamala Correa finished the season well. He's got a chance to give them some more good snaps and production. So the team has some pieces, but they're going to need some guys to step up and play well and fill some big voids.
Definitely. Yeah, that was just my only thing that I was a little worried about. And again, there's the Clowney talk that everyone's been talking about. I mean, not that I'm kind of over it, but it is what it is. If he comes, he comes. If he doesn't, I think we'll be okay. What do you think about that? Have you heard anything about Clowney? I know that I think they came out that he declined the Browns, but I think they were asking for 12 million. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, I mean, with him, it's really up to him. I mean, the Titans have made for the Titans are interested in him. Clowney obviously is trying to get himself as good a shape as possible and get himself ready to play. And reality is, there's really no sense of urgency for him to jump out and sign a contract. It's not like he needs to sign and then report to a team so he can rejoin them in practices. I think the first time guys will be on the field will be, in late July when camp starts. So he's got time. So it's really up to him and what he wants to do, what he's willing to play for. I think there's a great fit in Tennessee. He's familiar with Mike Vrabel, a guy who coached him in Houston. He's familiar with, a lot of guys on this team. One of his good friends is Jonathan Joseph, a guy I mentioned earlier who played last year with him in Houston. He's from the South. He went to South Carolina. He's played in, he spent last season in Seattle, which is a long way away from home. So this would allow him to get back closer to where he grew up. And, it's a team that could use another, dynamic player on defense. It makes sense for him to be in Tennessee, but, it's got to make sense for him and what he is willing to play for and what he is, what he wants to do. And so it sounds like teams are going to have to work off of his timetable. I think if you're the Titans, if you're another team, you'd love to get him signed and get him in the program and even have him go through the virtual off-season program. But It's clear that Clowney is running things on his timetable right now.
Yeah, unfortunately, again, it's in his hands, not ours. We just kind of, take it day to day, and we'll see what happens. I will be rooting for him if he, he goes with us, but I wouldn't be rooting. Hopefully he doesn't go to like the Colts or something. That would be if he does go, maybe NFC or somewhere over there. Just not the AFC South. If it's not with the Titans, don't go to the AFC South. That's all.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound like I'm just judging from the teams I've seen that are interested in him. I haven't seen a lot of chatter with AFC South teams, but
Okay.
it'd be a great get. I mean, there's no question you'd love to have a guy like that on the team. But with that said, if he does go somewhere else, I still think the Titans have a lot of pieces on defense where they can win and made an AFC Championship game, and he wasn't on the team last year.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think we'll be okay with or without him. I mean, I would like him, but again, it's okay. So looking at the schedule came out. We have 3 primetime games. If you want to count the Thursday night, at least it's not against Jacksonville again. But what game are you most looking forward to this year?
It's funny. A lot of them are intriguing. I mean, it was just right out of the gate going to Denver for a Monday night football game. I think that's an exciting opportunity, and it's the first one on the schedule. So season opener is always fun. I mean, I think the home game against Indianapolis on Thursday night in Nashville has a chance to really be, exciting because it's not only it's a primetime game, against a division rival, but it's a chance to really kind of, establish yourself going into the second half of the season, to try to make a run at winning the AFC South, which I think is this team's first priority this year.
Definitely.
The chance to play in Lambeau Field on a Sunday night in December should be a lot of fun. You hope that game. I think you hope that game means something, but the reality is it'd be nice if the Titans had everything wrapped up by then.
Yep.
But the way the league goes, you're usually scratching and clawing to the end. But to play in Denver and play in Green Bay in December on prime time, that one sounds like fun. So it's a interesting schedule, and I think the important thing for the Titans this year is to get off to a better start and don't find yourself trying to claw out of a 2-4 hole early, like what happened last season.
Yeah, I agree. And like you said, winning the division, I think is our number one thing, our number one focus, just to get that playoff, home game. And for some reason, we always have trouble with our own division and stuff. Usually they're split. Most of the time we always split games and stuff. And a lot of people are kind of pushing past the Jacksonville, saying like, oh, we'll sweep them and stuff like that. But, it's the NFL, and it's any given Sunday. Any team can come in regardless of the record and punch you right in the mouth. And we just got to kind of be aware of that regardless of, our record against, Jacksonville.
Yeah, I mean, Jacksonville, put in, thumping on the Titans last year down there earlier in the season. And Mariota got thrown around and sacked one time after the next. So, yeah, I mean, Jacksonville, I don't buy a lot of the preseason hype one way or the other. Jacksonville just a couple of years ago was a popular Super Bowl pick after going to the AFC Championship game. They ended up finishing, 5-11. This time last year, everybody's talking about the Browns, as a popular Super Bowl pick. We saw what happened to them. There's always teams that people just don't give a lot of credit to, and they rise up and they surprise us. It's like the Titans last year, I don't know if anybody had them in the AFC Championship game going into last season. So, every year's a new year. You got to stay healthy. You got to win close games, and you got to come together as a team to give yourself a chance.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I mean, no one gave me Titans credit, especially in Dallas. I mean, I would go to work, and people that were talking smack about the Titans weren't talking smack about the Titans when they played the Ravens and stuff. People were like, "Oh, we're rooting, go Titans!" Like, "Oh, thanks." A lot of Cowboy fans too. A lot of Cowboys fans were just kind of going, I hope you guys win it all. I'm like, oh, we'll see what happens. I'm not that fan that's like, oh, we're going to win this and that. I'm just very optimistic. I'm like, oh, we'll take it game by game. And I enjoyed the playoff run last year. It was great. It was great for the fan base and everyone.
So now you got to do it again because it's been a while since had a run like that. So now you got to. But I think guys have a taste of that success and knowing how to win in big games like that should help you moving forward.
Yeah, and definitely people don't want to go 9-7 we've been 9-7 for the past 4 years in a row. If we make it the fifth time, I told him, I'm like, hey, if we go 9-7 last year, but we get to the Super Bowl, I'm okay with that. As long as we win the division and we get to the Super Bowl, hey, 9-7 all day. I don't have a problem with that.
I'd rather go 9-7 and get to the AFC Championship game than go 14-2 like the Ravens last first round of the playoffs. So the season is all about getting yourself primed for the postseason and giving you a chance to win a Super Bowl. And the Titans made a good run last year, but still not good enough because I don't think anybody was satisfied by what happened last year. You want to win, and when you get that close, it makes it tougher because I've been around long enough to know how hard it is to get there. My first season covering the team, Titans go to the Super Bowl. I think some guys on that team felt like, we'll get back, we'll have a chance to win again. Well, it never happened. I mean, and Eddie George never got another chance, and Steve McNair never got another chance, and Javon Curse, and Frank Wycheck, all those guys. I mean, you're not guaranteed anything from one year to the next. So I think if you're the Titans, you've just got to keep building. I do think that the team has great leadership, starting at the top with Amy Adams-Strunk, John Robinson, quality GM who works as hard as anybody I know. And I think Mike Vrabel's a coach that relates well to players and has a great vision. So I think the key people are in place to make it happen, along with a roster that returns, a lot of guys who've proven they can rise to the occasion in the clutch. So, but you got to put it together because it's again, it's hard to win in the league.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And like I was saying, that locker room itself, I had Davenport on, and he was talking to me about some of his locker room experiences, and he would go to certain players for certain answers. He said that he would go to Logan Ryan would be his key person to talk about the defense because he would kind of break it down with him. Now, do you have any good locker room stories like that, or is there anything in your career, this could be, 99, it could any year, that kind of stuck with you that someone said or mentioned or kind of gave you advice? Because he said that Cam Wake would always go and talk to him about finance. He said Cameron Wake was awesome with finance, and he would always go to him. So do you have any stories or anything like that you'd like to share with the viewers?
Well, man, I've dealt with so many guys over the years. I mean, I've built a lot of, I had a lot of good personal interaction with so many guys. I mean, dating way back to Eddie George and Steve McNair and, Samari Roll and Javon Curse. I mean, I think for me, I've had so many positive experiences with those guys, and and it dates back to 20-something years ago. It's always, it's crazy for me to now see some of the guys I covered to now have kids that are now entering the NFL. I'm talking about Brad Hopkins, whose son was drafted. I'm talking about John Runyon, who was a Titan, whose son was just recently drafted. Chris Sanders, who played with the Titans, his son was part of this draft class. I think still trying to catch on as an undrafted free agent. But I guess for me, I mean, I've got countless stories about good experiences I've had with players and just building relationships with guys and how much fun it's been to cover them. But for me, it's just it's just the number of players that I've had great experiences covering, and it's been fun to watch their lives take off after playing. It's been neat to see how they've kind of been pillars of the community. It's been neat to see these guys come back when they've got homecoming events, alumni events. And it is, it's like a big family. All these guys who have passed through here before, and I think that's what I remember more than any one particular thing.
Gotcha. Obviously, writing for the Titans, you travel a lot, and a lot of people I don't think realize how much traveling can affect someone and how it could, that wear and tear. I mean, traveling week to week could be very, very tiring. And one thing I was really worried about talking about traveling was Jacksonville. Jacksonville, they were going to announce, I mean, they canceled it now, but, they were going to play overseas, and they were going to have 4 games, right? 4 games they were going to play over there. And I was worried just because I didn't want the Titans to be one of those teams to play. And it looked like, I don't have like any like insights, but I just had a feeling that the Titans were going to be, if everything was still going on and everything was fine, the Titans were going to be one of the teams that were going to go to London and play. In my opinion, I wouldn't want that, just because I think it kind of messes up the teams, messes up the schedule. But in your opinion, because I know that when you guys went, you had a blast. You said you loved it. I remember hearing that on the OTP and stuff like that. But as a player, do you think that benefits any players or anything like that? What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I think, from a player's perspective, it's probably different. I mean, I think the league is trying to create interest and trying to build excitement around the game all over the world. And I think when you play in London or you play in these international series games, I think it goes a long way in doing that. There's no question that it's a tougher trip for players because it was we left to go over there on a Thursday around, I think we probably flew out late Thursday afternoon, and we flew through the night, and we landed in London, I think when the sun was coming up around 5:30 on Friday morning, and then we're on the practice field, probably 5-6 hours later. Guys didn't sleep. I mean, if you didn't sleep on the plane, you were you were done. And I think they encourage, what they do is they encourage you to try to stay up and fight through it. They encourage you to try to get some sleep on the plane ride on the way over there. And then when you get there, don't take a nap, stay up all the way through to the next night. And for me, I mean, I can't speak to every player, but I know for me, I didn't sleep a wink on that plane. I tried. And then when we got to London, I knew I was facing, you better stay up. I think I went for a run to try to wake up. I went to practice, tried to sleep at night, working on no hour sleep the night before, and I couldn't sleep that night either. And then I'm a big Dodger fan, as you can see. I was, I think they were playing the Brewers in the NLCS that year, and I stayed up to watch that game on that London trip from the time we landed on Thursday night to the time we left to come back after the game on Sunday. I think I probably slept 4 or 5 hours the entire weekend. I was gassed when I got back.
Wow.
After playing a game. And but I loved every minute of it, I have to say. I mean, it was the experience at Wembley Stadium was outstanding. I loved seeing the city of London. It was incredible for me to see how many Titans fans were over there that were from that part of the world because this was their opportunity to see the Titans. And so it was neat just to see the atmosphere inside that stadium. I know a lot of people loved it. But it wears on you because it messes up your body clock, and especially if you have a game the following week. I mean, it probably takes a while to recover from it. So there's a trade-off there, and I from what I was hearing, I don't think the Titans were going to be in play for that game this year. I think Jacksonville had pegged a couple of other games or schedule, and but I think at some point, I think the Titans will end up going back there, and I know I will look forward to it. I think those games are fun and they bring excitement, and just hope hope the field. The field. Only thing I'd say is that the field, was wet and it was
Oh,
the playing conditions weren't ideal. And I think, if you're going to play over there again, I would hope that that the footing and some of that was maybe could be a little bit better the next time around.
oh, okay. Yeah. Like I said, that was the only thing I was kind of worried when they said they were announcing that they were going to play 4 games in London. I was like, oh boy. I mean, hopefully the Titans aren't one of them. Now I have a buddy of mine who texted me because he wanted to ask you a question, and he's like, you got to ask Jim this, and I said, okay, I'll ask him. So he wanted to know. He said, ask about the spider in the press box at a Rainy Titans preseason game. Do you know anything about a spider?
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I think people got a kick out of that because I was tweeting a picture of a spider web that had formed in front of me while watching that game. And those preseason games, I have to say, the second half of some they just kind of drag on, and I think I got a little bit more interested in the spider making its web than I was in the game itself. And I think I found a perfect shot. I think I positioned my camera where had my camera up with the spider in the frame, looking like he was a 12th man on the field. And
That's awesome.
Several updates of that spider building his web throughout the course of the game. So I do remember that spider, and I have to say he's had company because that like a little overhang where I sit, where it just seems like to be a very popular place for spiders to try to build webs. So there's always one that's kind of lingering around, when you show up there some Sundays.
That's pretty funny. And then his second question was, what's his crazy experience has been in the press box throughout his career of any stadium? So that was his.
I have, I will say there was one game where the Eagles game in 2002, I got food poisoning at some point right after a game. I must have been something I either had eaten at the press box or before I got to the game that morning. And it was the day when Javon Curse broke the 5th metatarsal in his foot, and Carlos Hall stepped in. I think had 3 sacks against Donovan McNabb in that game. I think I covered the game. I was in the locker room. I started feeling sick. I made it back up to the press box, tried to finish my story, but I was deathly sick. And Paul Kuharski, who I worked with the Tennessean, actually had to finish my story that day, and I had to, they took me to the hospital. I had to get 2 IVs after that game, and
Wow.
But I bounced back. I was back at work for a press conference the next day. That was a memorable day for me. As far as other crazy moments, I mean, there was in Philadelphia, I sat next at Old Veterans Stadium. This was probably 2003 season, maybe. We're up there for a December game, and I happen to have the seat. Most of these press boxes now, most of them now, a lot of them are up in the rafters. Some of them great sight lines, but I sat next to the camera well. I think it was a CBS game. My press box seat was next to the camera well where the window was open. I'm not kidding. It was probably 20 degrees and blustery winds that day. And when you're going to cover a game, I don't always have the warmest weather gear on me. So my hands were frozen during the course of that game, trying to type. And all of us, every game I've ever covered, and I've covered every one, since 1999, I've always, things are different now because I work for the team, I fly out, but usually you cover the game, you come back to the press box and you write your story. After that game in Philadelphia, everybody in that press box was so cold, we piled into a car and went back to the hotel after going to the locker room to write our stories because we were probably 8 10 of us packed into a car to go back to the hotel because it was so cold you just couldn't work in there. I'll never forget that one.
Wow. That's crazy. That's, again, it's experiences that, I mean, I'll never know, but I do thank you for sharing that. And I know that you have, I mean, you're always busy. You always have coaches and players to interview. But I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day to just hang out and just talk football. I do appreciate it from the bottom of my
That's
heart.
good. Yeah, I enjoyed it. And hopefully it'll be a good season this year. Hopefully we'll be able to get to training camp here in late July and we'll have the season start up on time if things continue to progress well. So I've enjoyed talking to you, and hope it's a fun season.
Thank you, and again, you'll more than likely can always come on, man. So thank you for everything, and keep doing what you're doing, Jim. We love you as Titan fans. Thank you so much, Jim.
Okay, appreciate it. Have a great day.